I always say allfortennessee.com is about the best off-season Vols site that you're going to get. However, we're coming close to the season. It's less than 2 weeks away. It's still a pretty good site. Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee, and Caleb Calhoun is on the line with me now. He has been, you've been sailing the Potomac River? Do I have this right here over the weekends and such?
Yeah. My wife and I just thought we would do a fun little boomerang cruise off the Potomac. They do little party cruises in the afternoon, going off to Georgetown for a couple hours, and we like to do little things like that every now and then on the summer in D.C. when it gets nice and warm out. So last Saturday I could really enjoy things before football season starts, so I had to take my wife out.
The Potomac River is one of America's great rivers, let's say. I still don't believe that George Washington could throw a silver dollar across it. I'm not going to give that any credence. That goes with the cherry tree, I think. But, yeah, that is a fun time right there. Now, you've just come out with a season's prediction. I haven't seen this. I was reading All for Tennessee, getting a grasp of your stories and all this. Some very intriguing points that you have made. But tell us here, okay, how are the Vols going to do in 2019? What does the Caleb Calhoun, allfortennessee.com crystal ball have to say?
So the good news is I do have the Vols making a bowl game and finishing up with a winning record.
Okay, I can see that.
Yes. The bad news is I say it's going to be barely. I say they go 7-5 in the regular season, and I've got them playing Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl and losing that game to finish 7-6. Funny enough.
Can we move the Belk Bowl from Charlotte to BMS if that's going to be the case?
As far as I'm aware, it's still in Charlotte.
Yes, I know, but can we just, if it is Tennessee and Virginia Tech, can we go back to BMS? Or for that matter, the Stone Castle in Bristol. I mean, my guess is that when you look at these bowl games with 7-5 teams, you'd probably be able to sell as many seats in the Stone Castle as you would at in Charlotte. I know people will debate that, Tennessee fans buy a lot of tickets, travel well, so for that matter do Virginia Tech fans and all this. But no, I mean, you're going back to a rivalry that would have a lot of interest in this area if that is true. So, normally these, they're playing Nebraska, okay, for nothing, but at least you'd have bragging rights in the Tri-Cities under your scenario.
Oh, I agree, and I've been screaming for years that Virginia Tech and Tennessee should be a natural rival. My hope one day is if the SEC does expand to 16 teams, that they add Virginia Tech and NC State, and it'd be a great, if they did 4 teams in 4 divisions, could you imagine how great of a division it would be to have Tennessee, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt as rivals playing each other every year?
It would be great for Tennessee because they wouldn't have to play Florida every year.
Exactly. Yeah, the other division would be Florida, Georgia. Well, I would think my assumption is they would have protected rivals from every other division. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they would protect Florida for Tennessee or if they would protect Georgia. But I think Tennessee would prefer to have them protect Georgia. But
regionally,
yeah,
go ahead, please.
Right. Yeah. So I think that Tennessee will go 7-6. I think they'll go 7-5. The reason they go 7-5 is I think they get off to a 3-0 start. But that 4-game stretch from Florida on the road, that's a sure. I got that as one of my top 2 sure losses. And then they have a bye, but right off the bye they got Georgia. That's another loss. And 2 weeks later they have Alabama. Those are 3 sure losses. In between there is Mississippi State, and I have that as a 4th loss, only because I think Mississippi State's going to be inconsistent this year. They're young, but Mississippi State will be traveling to Knoxville off a bye week. Joe Moorhead is a brilliant offensive mind. Bob Shoop, we know he's a brilliant defensive mind, even though if he doesn't look like it under Butch Jones, that was obviously Butch Jones' fault more than anything else. So I think Mississippi State coming off the bye while Tennessee being beaten up by Georgia and Florida, I think it's just too much. I think Mississippi State will get the Vols, and so Tennessee will fall to 3-4. But the good news for them is they will rebound. I think they finally get the best of Will Muschamp with South Carolina coming to Knoxville.
See that?
And then I think they close by beating UAB, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, but they will lose to Missouri.
I like Missouri. I know some people were kind of excited that, I don't know, and this is real Schadenfreude, but Kelly Bryant got injured in a practice, but it was a very minor injury. I think strained hamstring. It's not going to keep him out of anything. So, that's the case right there. Hey, one thing, though, if we're looking at preseason predictions, they did come out with the AP poll yesterday, the preseason AP poll. There's a lot of criticism of this. By the way, preseason AP polls did not come out, I believe, until 1950. Originally, in the 40s and the 30s, you didn't have an AP poll until middle of September. And so you didn't have that sort of, wait for Clemson to be number one and Alabama to be number two. But any thought on the Big Ten getting 7 teams in and the SEC only 6, and for that matter, the ACC only 2? Any thoughts on that?
It's not so much shocking. The SEC is kind of top-heavy this year.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of teams in the SEC that we just don't know how good they can be. I mean, there's such a range. I mean, Tennessee is part of that range. Vanderbilt's in that range. South Carolina's in that range. Even Missouri's in that range right now. I think Missouri is a step above all of the other programs. But they're still kind of in there. And then there's obviously Mississippi State and Kentucky, and even Auburn. I think there's a lot of teams in the SEC that, they'll be fighting against each other to be in that kind of closer to the top tier. But I think that, really the only 3 teams that, it's likely that LSU at least gets their 9 wins, and Texas A&M will probably take a step forward. But the only 3 teams that I think we all see competing for a title are Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. And, let's be honest, those 3 teams I'm pretty sure are going to be pretty darn elite too.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing, though, that I talked about is there's an off chance, even though they won't deserve it, there's a very good chance that Tennessee may be heading to Gainesville in the top 25 if they get to 3-0.
That's intriguing. Yeah, if they get to 3-0, but I would say, hey, look, I'm looking at the others receiving votes. I'm not seeing anybody giving them the others receiving votes. I do see Missouri, getting their, for lack of a better term, number 26. And for the locals around here, will probably be excited that Army is number 27 because Army recruits this area, the Tri-Cities, to a great extent. And there are a lot of players. Virginia Tech is around where South Carolina, it's in the muckety-muck of others receiving votes. And can you really say that they're number 32 or something? I'm not sure you can. But anyway, the circumstance just is that why would you see Tennessee weighted not even a single number 25 vote? You don't get them after 2 straight losing seasons, folks. At number 25 when they play Florida. How would you see them making that rise?
Well, there's a lot of teams that play each other, but I also do believe that, this is because of program prestige, Tennessee historically is one of the most overrated programs. I don't mean like just in general. Literally, there's data to prove that they're one of the most overrated programs every year. And I've seen this before. I remember 2012. Tennessee got to 2-0 after beating NC State and Akron. And then they got vaulted into the top 25 the week Florida was coming to town. And I don't know, it kind of turned me into a bit of conspiracy theorist. Like, okay, sometimes you wonder if media members subliminally, for the sake of TV ratings, when Tennessee played Florida, wants to sell them being in the top 25 and, try to sell interest in that game. And I don't know if they do it on purpose, but, Tennessee playing Florida and Florida 3-0, even though Florida's going to win that game in a blowout, they can at least sell some interest in the game if Tennessee gets into the top 25. And so you can see them subliminally doing that if Tennessee gets off to a 3-0 start. Because they had no business being in the top 25 after that 2-0 start in 2012. And it showed when Will Muschamp went to town and just in a dominant fourth quarter, kind of destroyed the Vols and really wrecked them mentally for the rest of the season under Derek Dooley.
2012 was the year that the Gators were 4-8, wasn't it? I'm trying to recall.
No, that was 2013.
2013, I'm sorry. They lost to Georgia
2012 was
Southern.
that year that they went to the Sugar Bowl.
I'm sorry. So I got them messed up right there, those 2 years. Forgive me here. So thank you for the correction right there, Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com. I do, but you mentioned, the team being a bit overrated historically, and I have seen that, By the way, for them to be, if they were 3-0, and yeah, BYU, come in off a bowl game. BYU is kind of looking better, I guess, as the game approaches and all this. But if the Vols were 3-0, they would have to leap over 23 at least other teams, if you include the all others receiving votes, to make the top 25. Not saying it couldn't happen. Southern California is one of those teams, and I doubt they're going to start undefeated. But that is a bit much. But yes, I mean, it could happen. You've been, though, very critical of a lot of these, let's say here, off-season stories, say about recruiting, say about, you wrote this in All for Tennessee, that there's been a lot of preseason hype that maybe the Vols don't necessarily deserve after 2 straight losing seasons, and a little bit of, what are they going to do here? Could you elaborate a bit?
Yeah, I've been kind of saying this for a little while, that I understand the analytical data that makes Jared Garantano a really highly desired pro prospect.
Yes.
But if we're gonna put him on watch list for awards and things like that, can we at least see him play, show flashes that he's gonna be on there? Like, I get why Pro Football Focus and people do that for NFL scouts and things like that. But I mean, I do think that your pro potential should have no impact on what type of postseason awards you're on a watch list for in college. I mean, I think that should only come down to production so far. And even though Jerry Garantano hasn't had the chance to produce as much, I mean, I understand the situations that he's been in, but he still hasn't produced that yet. Now, I mean, I happen to like him. I happen to think that he could be a solid quarterback for Tennessee. I haven't seen enough from him yet. And the only 2 players entering this year that I really am totally sold on from a talent perspective is Ty Chandler and Darrell Taylor. Now, I get the receivers with Marcus Calhoun and Juwan Jennings, but you don't know how healthy Jennings will be. Callaway, I mean, last year was his best year ever, and he only had 592 yards receiving, so you wonder what you're going to get with him. But the 2 players that I'm 100% sold on are Ty Chandler. Actually, take that 3. Ty Chandler, Darrell Taylor, and Bryce Thompson. Bryce Thompson is the 3rd one. But that's pretty much it.
You have a story I want to talk about coming up, who the number 1 receiver will be, Jennings or Galloway. I think it's very intriguing right here. But yeah, it does come out where, preseason rank. Give you an example. 2017, Tennessee was number 23. I do want to ask you this. Do you think Nebraska, coming off a 4-8 year, but they're number 24 in the preseason AP poll? That's because of Adrian Martinez, a player that Tennessee fans will probably know pretty well. Do you think that Nebraska, you say, hey, let's see you do it? Admittedly, Martinez is a nice prospect, but, is that a team that's maybe overrated? And so, therefore, I don't know, a Missouri or an Army or whoever should be in the top 25 and not Nebraska, in your opinion?
Yes, I think Nebraska is selling itself on the fact that they're Nebraska. Kind of the way they really kind of started to come together and look a lot better towards the end of the season, and also the Scott Frost name, because of what Scott Frost did at UCF. Even though UCF, again, went undefeated last year without him, I think there is a lot of hype behind it. But I do think it was a bit unfair to have them in ahead of Missouri and teams like that. So I do think it's a bit overrated. I think Nebraska could end up getting there, but, again, they're one of those teams where they might end up getting in the top 25, but we don't know yet. And you want to talk about strong finishes to the season. I don't know if anybody plays it. I don't know. Tennessee might have to help its opponent when it comes to strong finishes to the season, because BYU, when they put in Zach Wilson last year at quarterback,
yes,
I just did some research on them. Oh, my gosh, they got really good really fast.
Well, the thing about Wilson, I know he was playing, a minor opponent. I believe it was, if you remind me, was it a MAC opponent? Western Michigan, or
Western Michigan?
Yeah, I think so. In a minor bowl game, and he was 18 of 18, which now admittedly he hadn't been 100% off of against any of the other teams that he played. This was by far his best game. And we can always wonder about, in a bowl game, how much one team wants to play it against the other. That's another thing. But 18 for 18 with more than 300 yards. This wasn't dink and dunk, That's pretty good. So that's something that maybe when I read about that, I said, BYU might be tougher for Tennessee than we initially thought when I read about that. However, we have something to talk about BYU when we come back. But I want to tell you, if you haven't eaten lunch yet, consider Asian House. They're right there on the Shops on West Market. They're between Johnson City and Jonesboro on West Market Street. 321, 11E, about a mile down from the State of Franklin intersection on your way to Jonesboro. So go check them out. Mention my name, get 10% off. And oh yeah, those Chinese lunches, they begin at $5.99, so it's a pretty good deal too. home of the Happy